Hello and good morning, everyone. I hope you're well. So today we have our session on Microsoft funding. So with Microsoft funding, we're going to cover a number of opportunities, the who, what, why and how of Microsoft funding. Also, we'd like to invite you to ask your questions. So throughout this event, please feel free to use the chat features and drop your questions in. They will be passed to us by Kin, and we will go and respond to those questions at the end should you have any. So I would encourage you to do it, because this week we are incredibly lucky to be joined by Sophie Marshall. Sophie is our Head Director of Partners and Alliance, I think is the correct title. So Sophie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Leon, and good morning, everybody. So I am the Alliances and Partner Director here at Cloud Direct. I have actually been at Cloud Direct for just 6 short weeks. But, I've been working in the Microsoft ecosystem in and around it for about 10 years now. My job primarily at Cloud Direct is I look after and manage our Microsoft relationship, making sure that we're co-selling, co-marketing, utilising all the programs and funding available, which what we're talking about here today, and just making sure that we and our customers are maximising all of the different resources that we can get from Microsoft.
Superb. So as usual, I'm your host, Leon Godwin. I am the Principal Cloud Evangelist here at Cloud Direct, and some of the things that I see when I'm engaging with our customers and prospects is the challenge whether they're looking to initially adopt the cloud, or whether they're looking to move up the cloud stack, or whether they're looking to move across the cloud stack. That comes with a number of challenges, but also a number of opportunities. And that's the key theme of this webinar, is to look at those opportunities, those funding opportunities that can help mitigate the cost of change. So without further ado, let's jump into the first set of questions. And I suppose the first one is, Sophie, what is the Microsoft funding in terms of the AMM? What does it mean, and how can it derive benefit to our audience?
Brilliant. Yeah. So as you mentioned, big parts of the focus of this conversation today is around the Microsoft funding and the different programs that Microsoft have that enable customers can use to basically help accelerate themselves on their cloud journey. So for those organizations that are looking to migrate to Azure, there's the Azure Migrate and Modernization funding. And for sure, as you mentioned, Microsoft love a 3-letter acronym. So we thought we'd better get it in there. And this is part of their initiative to help businesses that want to transition to the cloud. So the program provides financial support, resources to assist in migrating and modernizing applications, data and infrastructure into Azure for customers. So as you can see from the slide here on the screen, Microsoft actually have different pots of funding available depending on the scope of the project that the customer's looking to do. So anything from the infrastructure and database migration. So this would be looking at migrating workloads to Azure Windows Server, Linux, SQL Server, etc., and other open source databases. This also supports hybrid deployments as well. So for those customers who have a lot of legacy infrastructure, they've got a lot of money still invested in, or they're not quite sure yet, we can also look at that hybrid option for them as well, and look at things like Arc to help them with that. Then you've got those customers that are looking to migrate their VMware environment to Azure. There's a lot of talk about this at the moment in the market, with a lot of the stuff that's come out from people like Broadcom, etc. We're seeing quite a lot of this at the moment, just where people are really trying to understand what it is that they can do going forward to mitigate costs, etc., but also really leverage the cloud environments they've probably already got. Then you've got things like enterprise apps. So this is where customers want to migrate any of their existing, .NET or Java or any of their on-prem applications up into Azure. And then finally, you've got virtual desktop infrastructure. This would be really about migrating customers' desktops and apps up into AVD or Citrix Cloud that you can also run on Azure as well. So, there are lots of different options that customers can look at. So the funding's designed to cover various stages of the migration journey as well. So customers that are looking to potentially, from the planning, proof of concepts, proof of values, all the way through to the actual deployment. And it also includes access to tools, best practices, and expert guidance throughout as well.
Okay, thank you. And it's interesting to say, because obviously I spend a lot of time engaging with customers. And two of the sort of main themes that I see coming out is, you sort of alluded to it earlier on about the Broadcom acquisition of VMware. A lot of organizations are uncomfortable with that situation in terms of what it's going to mean going forward, and they're using your VMware service and the funding available as that transitional step to ultimately go sort of into a native VMware IaaS and divorce themselves from VMware. So I'm seeing a lot of interest in the marketplace from that perspective. And as you know, I am a massive AI geek. So, and I know that there are some other funding avenues available for those looking to exploit AI. I think it's called the Innovate Funding Program. Could you speak a little bit more about that?
Of course. So, as we said, so Microsoft, you've got the Migrate and Modernize and funding that's for the infrastructure projects. So then Microsoft also have funding program called Azure Innovate, and this is designed to help business to accelerate their growth and innovation by leveraging the data and AI capabilities that are in Azure. So again, as you can see from the slide, depending on where you are in that data and AI journey, there are again different pots of funding that we can access to help you with that. So from POCs and productionization of, say, Fabric, which is, the new data platform solution that Microsoft have, or looking at how you can actually move from a Synapse across to Fabric as well. We're seeing a lot of that with customers at the moment who invested in Synapse maybe 18 months ago and now want to look at a new Fabric environment. Databricks, obviously Microsoft have this partnership with Databricks, so how we can utilize Databricks in those data platforms as well. And also big push at the moment around Power BI Premium and how we can help migrate customers to Fabric and how they can actually get a lot of the same functionality in Fabric that they'd have for Power BI Premium, but then also look at how we can reduce the costs, etc. Then you've got obviously the bit that you mentioned, Leon, the shiny bit, which is the AI and the data science and the machine learning. I keep naming names, but yeah, the AI part of it. So this is really about helping customers to get hands-on and start understanding the value of AI. So looking at my Azure machine learning, some of that speech to text and speech vision to text type situations, looking at LLMs, looking at how to actually build out, really complex AI models as well. So again, we've got the ability to take them from POCs, POVs to really, and I think that's really important to really help people understand and start seeing the value of AI. I don't know what you're seeing, Leon, but I'm really seeing at the moment that everyone wants to do AI and it's this big thing that everyone's talking about, but actually they need help understanding where to start, what use cases to do, what it actually looks like and what the business value is.
Yeah, I 100% agree on that. I actually host a workshop, so if anyone's interested in discussing their sort of data and AI journey, that is a free workshop that I offer through Cloud Direct to help you understand the art of the possible. You bring your business context and we discuss your needs. One of the things I just on the AI journey, one of the things worth pointing out is, as with many things, rubbish in, rubbish out, and the rubbish in this case is the fuel that drives the AI engine, which is your business data. And so these data analytics and data science platforms and the capabilities, whether you're just buying individual components of sort of data warehouse, or you're looking to utilize a data platform like Fabric, that is one of your first most fundamental steps if you are looking to adopt AI, and there is funding available to help you on that journey. The AI, the shiny bit, as you said, Sophie, that is, there are under the sort of banner, the sort of AI Foundry, which is where all their products and shiny things are available. Incredibly capable and can really drive business value. And what I'm seeing in the industry, especially those that are kind of like wanting to get that competitive advantage, their adoption of AI has already started. And they're focusing not so much on the individual accelerators, but the sort of business accelerators. How can we put cognitive AI work throughout a business workflow? So yeah, there is a lot going on in that space. So, but there is a degree of complexity with all this. So can you sort of demystify maybe the technical assessments and whether or not the audience might qualify for funding? What are those eligibility criteria?
Yeah, of course. So I don't know who is in the audience today or how much you have worked with Microsoft and partners in the past, but to access funding previously, partners and customers had to go via Microsoft, who then had to go through a very lengthy process of trying to get that funding, which usually actually resulted in the project's actually slowing down, which is obviously not what we want and not what the funding is designed for. So to stop this from happening and to help make sure we are accelerating those projects, Microsoft introduced our partner-led funding. So with partner-led funding, partners can now apply for the funding directly with Microsoft. And the type and the amount is dependent on some specific criteria, which I can go through in a moment. But basically with that, depending on what it is that the customer is looking to do, we have a tool that allows us to check whether the customer is eligible. I mean, it really takes about a couple of minutes. I can do it really quickly. It tends to be one of the things that I do quite often for our sellers and our pre-sales team, is actually understanding what funding that customers can receive from Microsoft. And actually then we can really make sure that you understand it, but also the Microsoft teams understand as well what funding that we're looking at. So when we look at the actual process for the partner-led funding, so the partners request that funding directly from Microsoft. So we do that within a portal. An email is then sent to the customer, which they have to consent to. And as soon as we receive this consent email, the funding is secured and the project can get started. And the best part of this, it actually takes about 24 hours to actually happen. It's a really quick turnaround compared to what it used to be. And what's really great about that is it means that we can, really quickly get started on those programs, get kickoffs happening really quickly. The only thing that I make sure on our side is to ensure that we have kickoff dates ready to go when we get the funding. The reason for that being that there are very specific timeframes around this funding. So for a POC or a proof of value, it's 90 days. We have 90 days to do it and complete it and then submit the claim to Microsoft. Then if it's for an actual deployment, it can range anywhere between 120 to 360 days, depending on the size of that deployment and the scope of the project. So it's really critical that we make sure we're maximizing the timescales as well that we have from Microsoft to get it done. Once it's then completed within the time period, the customer has to complete a survey, and it's literally, I initiate an email. They have to answer 5 questions. It is very simple things like the start date, the end date. Were you happy with what you got out of the proof of concept or the deployment? It's simply 5 questions which you submit. The only caveat I'm going to say, and this will be all partners that people are working with around Microsoft funding, if you don't submit that claim or that consent form, we can't submit the claim and then you will not get the funding. So that's a really critical part of the process. But it's a really quick and easy thing to do. We can guide you through it if you want. It's something that all of our team know how to do. We've got the expertise in. And then with the proof of concepts and the values, the funding amount that you get from Microsoft is very set in stone, right? It's a very set amount. But for deployment projects, the value that we can get from Microsoft is really dependent on the size and the scope of the project. And a lot of it is down to the annual consumed revenue that we'd see from Azure. And we can forecast that using specific tools like the Azure calculator and things like that. So we can do a lot of the heavy lifting in the background to ensure that we are accessing the right programs, getting the right funding for you in place, and then really seamlessly making sure we get you through the process. And all of the team are well versed in how to do this as well.
Excellent. Just on that, just expanding on that point. So if someone wanted to know if they are eligible, that wouldn't necessarily start the 90-day clock, or would it?
No, it doesn't. So it's a tool that I can check using some information about the customer that I can get from Microsoft or from the customer themselves. It's very quickly, I can check in the tool. It's to check to make sure that we're not over-promising that we can get you certain funding or that you're eligible for certain funding, so that we can be very clear on what we can and can't get for you. But it also means that you can also go back to Microsoft and discuss it with them as well if you're speaking to them. So no, it doesn't start the clock. The clock does not start until the customer themselves hits consent in that email that's sent to them. And it basically is an email saying, Cloud Direct are going to start this project to do XYZ. So I don't know, an AI proof of concept. Do you consent to this? As soon as the customer says yes, that's when the clock starts for that 90 days, 120 days, etc.
And does that eligibility criteria require a scope of a particular project? Does that need to be scoped out before they need to check whether they're eligible, or is that something they should do sort of very early doors in their kind of planning life cycle?
Yeah, no, completely understand. So what I would say is that we can check the eligibility at any point. It would be more dependent on what then once we can check with what they're eligible for very quickly. But then on the other side, it would then be looking at how we scope out the project, and that would be done as part of our pre-sales and sales activities at the beginning. Whether or not we've done, like you said before, Leon, if someone's done one of your ideation sessions, a lot of the information that you're trying to get out of any of those sessions or workshops that we do is very much helping us build out what that scope looks like for the project. So from there, we can very easily start to kind of form and have an idea of what the funding is that we want to go for, making sure that it hits the parameters that Microsoft are asking for to ensure that we get the maximum funding for the customer. So no, if the customer already has an idea of what they want to do, that's great, but it is bedded into our sales, pre-sales, workshops, etc., is helping them actually build and scope what the project looks like.
Okay, that's superb. So it sounds like I'm just trying to put myself in the position of the audience. If they are thinking about funding and are thinking about change activities, but they haven't necessarily gone through the process of fully ideating that out, they can still come to you and get that kind of, well, yes, you would potentially qualify for these pots of funding. We would recommend a more detailed assessment on your requirements so we can actually turn that into a specific set of value metrics.
Yeah, exactly that. So from that, it would be very much, yes, you're eligible for the funding. We will then work with you. And it's very much then built into how we build out our statements of work for the customers, making sure the right milestones are in there, etc., to make sure they're getting the right value out of the project that they're looking to do as well. So yeah, it's all baked into the workshops that we do, our pre-sales activity, the sales activity that we do. It's all around making sure that the customer's project is scoped properly, but also so that it aligns to how Microsoft would like projects done, which is also really useful. They've got things like the well-architected framework and cloud architected framework, WAF and CAF. Again, 3-letter acronyms, it's Microsoft. But, it's making sure that actually the partners are delivering the solutions and the deployments up to best practice, industry best practice, Microsoft best practice. So actually it's keeping the partners honest as well, if I'm totally honest as well, to ensure that actually what we're delivering for customers is best in class as well.
Okay, that's superb. And we've kind of discussed a little bit about what Microsoft are doing, but we kind of hinted more also about what we can do. So can you talk about how a customer can kind of maximize their funding opportunities, not just with Microsoft, but also with Cloud Direct, and maybe bring that to life with some examples?
Of course. So far what we've discussed today is obviously the Microsoft funding pots, different ways that Microsoft are investing in customers and working with partners. However, like we said, the funding doesn't always cover everything. And, especially those initial workshops where customers want to understand more about how we as Cloud Direct can help, discuss more about that technology, get some support with the ideation, building out use cases, building out like business value use cases that they'll need to take to actually get sign off for these sorts of projects. So, that isn't always covered by the Microsoft funding. So actually at Cloud Direct, we've got a number of these Cloud Direct funded workshops that you mentioned earlier, Leon, where they're free of charge for the customers, where we can actually offer this to the customer to help them build this out, learn more about that technology, learn more about where they are now and where they want to get to and what the stages are to kind of get to that. So as you can see here, this kind of takes you through some of the different routes. And as you can see, depending on where you are, whether that's around migration, modernization, looking at centers of excellence, station AI, security, modern work, all of it, we've sort of got those very initial front-end workshops that we will fund. And then throughout it, we can look at how we can then leverage Microsoft's funding, where the customer needs to be funding it themselves, and also where we can get the best combination for customers as well. So yeah, just to talk you through some examples then. If I start with Safety Clean. So Safety Clean came to Cloud Direct and looked to do one of the Cloud Direct funded migration workshops to really understand their as is state, so what they currently had, where they wanted to be in the future, what that roadmap looked like for them, what they wanted to migrate, and then who should be involved within the business. Always one that people seem to skip past, but it's actually really key, especially when you look at AI workshops. I'm sure you've got some stories there. So yeah, very important to know who's going to be involved. So then from this workshop, Cloud Direct were able to then get about just under £75,000 worth of funding directly from Microsoft to look at doing the discovery, design and migration for them for that initial phase of the project. However, following on from that migration, Safety Clean then wanted to assess their security across the environment. You know, we talk about migrations, we talk about how important that is, but as most people know and have seen, and you must, seen the news, cybersecurity and security in general is just such a big topic at the moment in IT. Making sure everything is secure, making sure migrations are secure, your data is secure, threats of attack, it's endless. So Safety Clean then wanted to assess all of that in their environment. So again, we took them through a Cloud Direct funded workshop, and actually we got some Microsoft funding for that as well at the time, because there are some security workshops that we can get funded by Microsoft, to really help them understand where they were and where they wanted to be and what that would look like. Then from this, we were able to secure them a certain amount of funding for a Defender rollout, which they were able to roll out across the environment. And then off the back of that, we also then managed to get them even more funding to then look at a Sentinel SOC 24/7 rollout as well. So it's, what I really wanted to highlight here is we can help customers navigate those funding pots and ensure they're maximizing what they're getting from Microsoft, because I think that's really key. Most customers don't know what's available from Microsoft. As a partner, and as a partner who's been doing this for a long time, we do. So it's really about making sure we can emphasize and get the most that we can for our customers. Just thinking of
what's interesting there is the fact that you've gone back many times to the well to go and secure more funding for more business change. And I think that's interesting, because I think some people think of it as a one-stop, it's for migration, and then that's it. But actually, this is a great example of that multiple return to the well, mitigating those costs of change.
Yeah, definitely. And the interesting thing as well is, if you actually think about that as well, so yes, there is the whole lift and shift piece, right? Most people only lift and shift once to do a migration. But like you said, people could have, if customers say wants to do the infrastructure and database migration, we can get funding for that. But then actually they come to us and go, look, now we've done that, we really need to look at our VMware estate, what we should be doing with that, how we can best be doing, that's again another pot of funding we can go for. Is again, if we're then looking at apps, there's lots of things that we can look at as a broad scope to then be able to go back, like you say, and get more from the well. The other thing I would say is interesting around some of the data and AI funding as well, especially around AI, is you can go back multiple times if you're looking at doing specific use cases around AI and things like that. So as long as it's a very specific use case that's a different stream. So say, for example, the first use case we got into production was for HR, but actually we want to now go back and look at how we can do something for finance. Because it's different, we can go back and reuse similar funding pots again, because it's a different use case, different department, different funding stream. So there are ways, like you say, to go back and get more from the well.
Yeah, also I think it's interesting because you have that migration, and that's all your sort of standard. I want to move from a capex to an opex model. I want to go and provide a higher level of resilience, flexibility, scalability, lots of itties in terms of that kind of infrastructure level play. But then what I'm seeing more and more is the further up the cloud stack, the closer it's aligned to business goals and objectives. I want to deliver greater operational efficiency. I want to deliver more value to our customers. And those kind of business level perspectives are kind of facilitated further up the cloud stack with various sort of technologies and capabilities, such as data insights and AI providing, whether it's business process or intelligent business process automation or other systems. And the fact that there is funding available for that, that's actually kind of helping guide you throughout the journey. And obviously, You mentioned some of those workshops. I actually lead some of those workshops. The data and the security workshops are mine. I'll also do a sort of general sort of innovation workshop as well. So that is something that I do, and my colleagues can do at the front end. I think it's worth touching on some of the other use cases, because I think some of them, in terms of the funding, I think different size and scale can kind of be useful, because it isn't all about your massive organizations. I can actually see there is some questions coming through from the audience, and if you have anyone else come through, I will throw Sophie under the bus shortly.
Excellent, love that. Thanks, Leon. Yeah, so again, I just wanted to pick out a few more examples. I do think it's also worth understanding, you know, the mix of how we can do this as well. So this one, for example, is a leisure company that we're working with that wanted to look at how they could modernize an on-premise application that they had. So what we were able to secure just under £30,000 worth of funding for them for the initial discovery and that proof of execution. And what was great about that is the way that it was scoped and the way that we worked with Microsoft on it meant that actually that funding covered the whole cost of that first initial piece. Then we were able to go back to Microsoft and actually then get more funding to get for the design and deployment of it. And then another little one as well, again, working, because we work so closely with Microsoft, we work with Microsoft and the team to work out how we could then fund the first month of usage for that organization as well. So again, like you said, there's different examples as we go through this, because we're trying to show that, look, we can be certain pots allowed to cover POCs and the whole bit. We can look at using credits and subscriptions and things for your subscriptions for the first month, etc. So there are ways that our teams know how to do this, and they are, as I said, experts in it, and they know how to navigate it to make sure the customer is actually getting the most out of Microsoft as well. And then the last one that I just wanted to highlight, and then I will stop talking for a minute before you throw me under the bus, Leon, with some questions, is a law firm that we were working with that wanted to actually migrate a really large portion of their estate to Azure. So we managed to get for them about £75,000 worth of funding. But as you can see from the graph, the actual total cost of the project was about £125,000. So with the funding, we managed to actually significantly reduce the cost to the customer by about 65%. So it's massive savings that we can get from the customer, you know. So actually we're helping them get the most out of their investment. We're helping them maximize what they're getting from Microsoft. And, you know, if that customer waited to be able to spend afford that full £125,000, you know, that could have taken another 6, 12, 18 months, but actually utilizing and using that Microsoft funding meant that they could start doing it faster and start realizing the benefits a lot quicker as well.
Excellent. Well, I think this has been very valuable, and one of the reasons I know it's been very valuable, generally when I do these webinars, we'll get somewhere between 0 and 1 question come up. We've got 6, so you are proving incredibly popular. So buckle up.
Good.
Okay, so is funding available to corporate bodies only, or are they available to the individual?
It tends to be corporate bodies, or so it's also available to governments. There is a non-for-profit piece as well that we can use. So it's available to different. It then does tend to be corporately, because it's then done off of what Microsoft have as their account lists and how they manage that internally. So doesn't tend to be for individuals themselves, but if you're part of an organization, or you are or if you are in contact with Microsoft, they can usually find a way for you to access it.
Okay. Yeah, in my experience, it's mostly corporate entities. So this one's, I think, is a really good question, and feel free to bat it back to me if you want. But, I think it's got a certain technical element to it. But often a POC can involve collaboration with a number of stakeholders within an organization to get best value. Very true. When and how should a POC be planned, and to what level of detail? If you want, I'll face that one.
I can do it. I'll tell you what, I'll face it, and then I'll let you do it as the person who tends to be the one involved in most of those. So yes, as you mentioned that question, it does involve collaboration from a number of stakeholders. To be honest, in my experience, the POCs that get the most value and actually end up going into production are the ones with key stakeholders from across the business, not just IT, but also the business users as well, is really key. because, you know, they are the people that are using a lot of this stuff day to day, and also the ones that are going to be deriving actually the most value out of it day to day. So understanding what they need is really critical. I would say that when you're planning out that POC, I'm not saying you need everybody in the room, because sometimes too many voices and all that sort of thing. But I do think when you're looking at a POC, especially, and if you're looking at, say, an AI POC, it would be right. First of all, you need to determine the use case, right? You need to get a really strong use case that, you know, you've got good buy-in from the business, and then get the stakeholders that are aligned to that use case. So, for example, we see a lot of those use cases come from finance or marketing or HR, quite honestly. So it's really imperative you have the IT stakeholders in the room, but then you would also have, you know, the finance stakeholders in the room, who then would get the most to have the day-to-day of that, but then look at how they, and because they'll be the ones that can also see the value in it, and be the ones that will, once you actually do the POC, will see, be like, oh yeah, that would save me X amount of time or X amount of money. So those would be the people I would have. And now I'm going to pass to Leon.
Absolutely. So what just adding on to that, and I completely agree with everything you said. The workshops that we offer help provide that planning and detail. So when you're looking to say when and how, it's, you know, when you understand what you might be possible, then you'll go kind of an art of the possible workshop. When you're looking to refine that, so you might speak to me and I can educate you on the art of the possible in terms of a given technology stack. But having established that, and you want to engage internally, and that maybe turn into a more detailed workshop, say with my colleague Dan. Dan's much more knowledgeable than I am when it comes to data and AI, and he can actually drill down into your specific use case. And what we do is we help the generation of the plans and the level of detail, certainly to be able to go and secure funding, but also we would bring in those stakeholders to make sure that we have that plan and ultimately that design in place. So on a when, it's when do you know that you need, what is your compelling event and what is your compelling reason to change? When you understand those, that's the time to go and engage with us. We have another question from the audience. We have been eligible for AMM funding in the past. Does that automatically mean we are eligible for Innovate funding, or are there different requirements? Excellent question.
Brilliant question, actually. So if you've used AM funding in the past for migrations, yes, it probably means you can get Innovate funding, but I would say reach out to us. Well, let's have a conversation about it, and I can very quickly go and check for you what levels of Innovate funding you would be available to you for a data and AI project.
And this is an interesting one, and I think perhaps this came in possibly before some of the other slides that we were showing. So is there a need to match the investment to the funding? And I think you've already highlighted that actually sometimes funding can totally cover the cost of change. Sometimes, I think on the slide that we've got on the screen, it's 65%. In another example, it's 100. So, you know, I can probably front that one, but keep me honest, Sophie. I know there isn't a requirement to match pound for pound.
No, there isn't. So especially with the partner-led funding that we're talking about here, there is no requirement for us to do it. The only thing I would say is, I wouldn't expect all of the time for the funding to cover the full amount. And, you know, there are certain instances where that does happen. But, you know, the whole point of this funding isn't to potentially cover the whole cost of, say, a POC or a migration. What it is there to do is to help customers with that investment. You can see that Microsoft are also investing in it as well to help you accelerate it, to ensure that you're getting the most value and impact from it. But no, there isn't an expectation to match the funding.
Okay, and this I actually find I've not heard this question come up before. What does Microsoft get from funding businesses? Is it that we use Microsoft software?
I've never had that one before either. I think so. Microsoft have always had funding pots, right? They've always had funding. They have programs like this. As I mentioned earlier in this, previously it used to be like Microsoft-led funding, which used to be called ESIF. And, you know, that was a very long, cumbersome process to go and get that. Microsoft are very aware that if they invest in these sorts of things and invest in the partners to help accelerate them, help invest in the customers to use the technology, the more likely that customers are to use it, get the most out of it, then want to look at how they can further, like we've seen with some of the examples here, you know, You start with a migration, then you look at security, then you'll start looking at data and AI. So yeah, for them, it's really about the investment in it is to really help to accelerate it and to get people using the technology, seeing the value in the technology, so that then they can start accelerating that journey into the cloud. Because most companies are looking at it, and whether that is Microsoft or one of the other hyperscalers, whose names I'm not going to say on this call because I will get told off, but they are looking at it. And again, Microsoft are very aware of that. So what they're really trying to do is invest in their customers to help them make the decision to go with Microsoft, but also really show the value of the technology that Microsoft are creating.
Yeah, and just to add to that, when you, let's say a cost of change is to adopt, I don't know whether it's 365 or Azure, ultimately you are going to have a monthly spend on Azure. So they are, by helping you get there, what's in it for them is they're putting some skin in the game, because you will be spending money with them going forward. Yeah. So I think part of it is marketing, part of it is market share, part of it is the competitive advantage that they offer versus other hyperscalers. Was that a delivery? No. So let's move on to the next question. So as a small organization, our tech offering is a bit more self-designed, but needs to be brought more up to date in the technical field. Is there an opportunity to chat about the possibilities if we are not quite sure if we would be eligible? I think 100%. That's a question for both of us, really. I think 100%. You take the eligibility.
Yeah, 100%. Have that conversation with us. Like Leon said, we can do those workshops, talk to you about innovation, the art of the possible, etc. Then in the background, we can look into the eligibility. We can have conversations with Microsoft in the background as well to see if there is anything that we can do to see if we can get you access to the funding. So no, 100%. Let's have that conversation and see what we can do to help you.
Yeah, I can give an example of an organization. They had a rather sort of bloated on-prem kind of solution, and they wanted something to be a bit more cloud ready and scalable. It was a service that allowed you to book lounges at international airports, but your rights to do it are sort of geographic, and as they had more markets, they needed to be scalable. They couldn't go and deploy their application. They didn't want to go and put another piece of tin in a data center, and also it wasn't dynamically scalable. They wanted to be able to scale out for sort of peak demand times. So modernizing their application and moving it, making it cloud native and using those capabilities, one, was incredibly cost efficient for them, and two, they could make use of the Microsoft tools to go and change, and that was actually quite a profound business change for them. So yeah, I agree with Sophie. Reach out first. Step one, go and have that eligibility conversation. Step two, let's go and have a conversation to understand what your needs are, and then we can suggest the right workshop that we will run for you, and then we can deep dive into the specifics of your needs, and we can help you with the art of the possible and what's involved. So I think that is it for now. We have one more thing kind of to close out, which is, why on earth would anyone want to go and do their funding through us, Sophie?
Love that. So as I said throughout this, our team know Microsoft really well. Look, we've got over nearly 20 years of experience working with Microsoft, and only Microsoft. They are the only hyperscaler vendor that we do work with. So, we know Microsoft inside and out, and our experts and our team really know how to get the most from funding and working with Microsoft for our customers. And we've got solutions and offerings and expertise in helping organizations transform into the cloud, modernize their applications, build out data strategies, data platforms, helping them make sense of AI, productionizing AI. Look, all underpinned by the best practice and knowledge we have in Microsoft security as well, right? So anywhere that customer is on that cloud journey, we can help them, and we can help them to accelerate it by leveraging the huge investment that Microsoft has made into the funding. And we're really committed to doing that. And we, like you see here, we are one of the top users of their Microsoft program funding, and they are really keen for partners and customers to be utilizing it to help accelerate their journeys. So, we are more than happy to have those conversations. If you're not sure on your eligibility or what the project links to look, have a call with us. We're more than happy to talk that through and help you with it.
Excellent. Yeah, I believe we're kind of ranked, third in the whole of Europe in terms of securing funding, which I think, and the other thing I'm quite proud of is we've actually structured our organization the same as Microsoft, so we can then have direct relationships. So our technical experts who work in a particular vertical, they are aligned to the vertical with Microsoft. So when we need to bring in a Microsoft resource, we've already got those personal relationships. That applies to me, and that applies to all our technical personnel. So we work incredibly closely, which is why we end up delivering significantly more value than others. So finally, what should they do, Sophie, if they want to find out more?
That you've listened to me talk with Leon for the last 45 minutes, so I thank you all very much for being here. So feel free to contact me. My email's on the screen here. It's sophie.marshall@clouddirect.net. Feel free to reach out to me. I can connect you with the team. We can talk through funding and eligibility. Our phone number's on there, but please, I encourage you to reach out to me directly. I'm more than happy to have those conversations. I'm more than happy to get our sales and pre-sales team in. Leon has mentioned his workshops. I'm more than happy to run those. We just want to help, make sure that you accelerating that journey to the cloud wherever you are, but also, making sure that we and Microsoft are investing in that with you as well.
Okay, and I'd like to thank you for joining. I know your time is busy. I hope you've got a lot of value out of it, and we hope to hear from you again soon. So thank you for your time, everyone, and goodbye.